Let's do it.
We are here with our episode number 2 of the Seedpod podcast. I'm Jesse Nelson.
Edwin Jones here.
We are the ministers here at the Lenore City Church of Christ.
And by the way, come see us.
Come and see us. Come and join us live. Ask questions. Just to let you know, we do have someone who is checking the comments section. So if you comment and have a question as we're going, we will try to answer it the best we can. But as we told last time, it's going to have a Jesus answer.
That's all we're up to.
Because with the Seed Pod, we are sowing Jesus-shaped seed for you to have, and all of us to have, a Jesus-shaped heart.
That's it.
That's
the only business we can be in.
We want to have the heart of Jesus. And so for our first episode, because our first one was kind of like, who are we?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
And that's what we're doing.
We want to talk about the real deal.
The real deal, to which I could say, to kind of accentuate the point, is there any other kind? And the answer would be, well, no, there isn't. So what is it?
There isn't, but there is, because there's a lot of facades going on out there.
Yeah, they are, but we're talking about the real deal.
And so what we mean by that is, I hear this statement a lot, Edwin. I don't want religion, but I want Jesus.
Yes, and that's a double-edged sword, is it not?
And I get the sentiment, and the sentiment I think comes across like this. A lot of what religion and churches, mainstream, institutional, have to offer, what they have to offer is not what they see as congruent with what Jesus is. And I hope that's what they mean. I hope that's what they're talking about.
However, there's perhaps a possibility that this is like some stuff we found out in Zechariah when we were doing our daily Bible readings. Yeah. That the people are asking all these kind of questions about what to do, and God says, are you really doing this for me in the first place? Yeah. And it's the talk about, well, organized religion isn't getting it done for me. Are you saying that what gets it done for you is what you want to do because you want to do it? And I fear that could be part of the discussion as well.
Well, excuses can be disguised with well-meaning thoughts.
We don't want to just say, I'm a crud, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, well, and people get tired.
They do.
They get tired of the same old stuff, the same old things. I don't want to go to church. I don't want to be responsible for others. I don't want to be around those hypocrites, right? It's kind of
the hypocrites.
Well, and funny thing is about those hypocrites is you're one of them.
Unless we're perfectly like Jesus, we whether we intend it or not, on occasion have a facade that we throw up there without thinking about it.
Yeah. So what this episode is doing is, what we're going to try to do is, what is the real deal? What should churches be looking to accomplish? What should Christianity be looking to accomplish? And really, it's kind of simple. It's go read what Jesus did and go and do likewise.
I had a student way back, Tony Reese, he's deceased now, one of my favorites. And he would commonly say something like, it's not what you think.
Yeah, it's not what you think. And a lot of times, and that's unfortunately sometimes our fight with the non-religious world or the unbelievers, is what they see is a lot of times the issues that they have religion, I have the same issues with. They're like me and you both.
Yeah.
Right?
I was on a podcast with a guy in Canada, Tony Brewer, last night, and he was talking about we have Big Ten religion, 5 things we do to become a Christian, 5 things we do in church buildings. And we both agreed that we agree that those things are part of the mix, but that the mix is much broader than that. And those things starkly by themselves don't begin to do justice to what they're about.
And if that was it, this would be a whole lot smaller.
Oh, yeah. Just do this and go home.
But most of this book is not about really what we do corporately when we come together or in worship, but how we live our everyday life.
Painfully little of what we give so much attention to is what we find.
Yeah. Well, humans often want to do religion their way. As you're saying, people want it, well, I don't think I should do that, or I don't think God wants it.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that. I think, I want. And really, have we ever stopped to go, as you brought up with Zechariah, the people come to God and say, hey, can we stop mourning? Can we stop fasting? And God says, you were never really mourning and fasting for me.
This was never about me.
It was about you.
Yes. No, that's the thing. When we really look and see what God emphasizes, well, I think James' definition of pure religion, complete and undefiled, is a shocker. If we didn't know what the answer was and we were asked to guess what it was, I doubt we would guess it.
Well, if I went up to you, and I think these are what the people have, define religion for me. Nobody's going to say, take care of the widows and orphans.
No.
They're going to say, it's church buildings, It's preachers, it's elders, it's structure, it's deacons,
Yeah,
it's
structure,
Bible,
it's things
you
we
know.
habitually do in church buildings usually.
And those are a part of it. God has given us some structure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've taken even the structure in the appointments of places further than God intended. Does God want shepherds? Yeah.
Yeah, but he wants them to shepherd.
But he wants older, wiser people.
Spiritually mature men.
Who've learned and lived. You don't have to be appointed a shepherd to be a shepherd.
Right. In fact, people who wind up being shepherds ought to be the people who've been doing it anyway, and people say, there's a guy right there.
Yeah, yeah. So religion looks, and what God has really wanted the Jews to understand is religion needs to get out of the temple as well, because a lot of times they go, hey, haven't we sacrificed? Haven't we done all the things you asked me to do? And God would say, all that stuff means nothing to me because you don't do justice, right? You mistreat the poor. You're divided, you're fighting, you're bickering, you're
lying.
You're lying, you're swearing falsely, all these things. God is basically saying it's a whole package.
Exactly. When we look at that, and we look at the New Testament, it's emphasizing character, integrity, which is like Christ-likeness, the kind of person you are, because that's the context for the words we speak for Jesus. If we're not people of integrity, if they can't see Christ in us, and they'll realize we're not perfect, everybody understands that, but if they see that's important to us, they'll listen to what we have to say. If they don't, most of what we have to say is going to fall on deaf ears.
Well, what's easier to say? Well, I'm a Christian because I go to church, or I'm a Christian because I live the Christian lifestyle.
I wonder what the answer to that is. Well, here's the thing. We've both experienced this.
Yeah.
I've experienced it for longer, but it's the same thing. And that is so-and-so faithful? Is Jack faithful? What do we mean? Does Jack go to church?
Yeah. Does he show up Sunday morning?
Consistently. Yeah, that's it. And I'm a big believer in assembling with the saints.
No.
But on the other end, is that the definition of faithfulness? Apparently,
what is
the
Jack
Bible could be
doing
all
on Monday?
well, what's Jack doing on Monday when he goes to work? How's he doing in the
Friday
house,
night?
the family, with his kids, all that stuff? Yes.
That's what I want to know. The fruits of the Spirit. Is he displaying the fruits? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such,
there is no law.
There is no law. So when I love Cornelius. Cornelius is in Acts chapter 10. It's kind of your first non-Jew that really is getting center stage.
He's a God-fearer. He's not circumcised.
He's not a Jew, but he's a God-fearer. And what I want to know is, what I've always been interested in is, how did he become a God-fearer? He's a Gentile. He wasn't born a Jew. So how did he learn?
I don't think it was because he was influenced by the Pharisees.
No. Not what is described about him.
What God reveals in the Old Testament, that he says when people observe it, they'll see you've got a God none like anybody else, and laws unlike anybody else. Those kinds of things that attract people and cause them to be drawn to it. He had seen that in some Jews who got it and lived it.
Well, you mentioned our reading in Zechariah chapter 8 already. But one of the promises of the Messianic kingdom was the fact that when Jews would go to Jerusalem to worship, other people from other nations and other tongues would grab onto their garment and say, take me with you.
No, what they had was incomparable to the real deal.
Yeah. And so Cornelius, I'm going to read what it says. It says, a devout man who feared God with all his household, gave alms generously to people, and prayed continually. And right there, he defines him as being a God-fearer, and he defines he was good to people, he prayed to God, he was a man of God.
Well, what did we just see in Zechariah? It's everywhere. When God says, here's what I want you to be.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that he says, look, the rest of it we're not even going to talk about until we get this down.
Well, and I think a lot of our structure, that's easy.
Oh, yeah. Easy peasy.
We can set up structure.
Go sit in the pew. It's going to be there an hour. Okay.
And God doesn't want us spending a whole lot of time on that, because, as the Hebrew writer says, it's time to move beyond the wash, all the stuff that is easy. I can define all that stuff, defend all that stuff, easy. What's really hard is life.
Well, the synagogue was such a cultural, important thing to Jews. And so it was more so than the temple in a practical sense. But how much time is Jesus spending in synagogues? I mean, he's there, but when we think of Jesus, we think about him being out and about with the people in real life, being real. And that is, at the end of the day, where religion stands or falls.
Think about Jesus sweating. You're over in the Middle East. It says he was out all day.
Feet dirty.
Ministering and feeding and healing, and it says he was exhausted.
His hair's going to be kind of oily, because you're not going to shower every morning. And I mean, he's just a regular, had been a blue collar man, just going out and being his godlike self.
If he was passing through the crowd, you would know nothing.
No, he had no form of comeliness that we'd be drawn to his charisma. People who were drawn to him and stayed with him were drawn to what he represented about God.
Yeah, they saw his good works. They saw all his teaching.
He was a man of integrity.
He was a man of integrity, and they wanted to hear. Because imagine the difference between a Pharisee speech and a Jesus speech.
Oh, man.
This
Sermon on the Mount contrasted to Pharisee speech. Yes.
Pharisee speech is so contrived, written. It's the same old, let me show off how smart I am, how much I know
Rabbi
the law.
so-and-so said such and such.
And Jesus this is it.
Well, in the Sermon on the Mount, that Pharisaic style, which is what most of the Sermon on the Mount is against, you got to be more righteous than the scribes and the Pharisees. They're amazed that he's not teaching them like those people. He's the real deal. He's got the authority. He's going to the Word.
And that has to translate into our lives.
It does.
If we think that Jesus came and gave us an example that we can't follow, right? Even in preaching, a lot of preaching can at times be very, we're preachers here, so we're
going to give you a lesson, and the lesson may be true.
Yeah.
But is it part of the bigger whole? Is it getting us where we need to go?
And a lot of times preaching becomes public speaking, and we define rules to it. You get homiletics classes, and if you have an A, you got to have a B. If you have a 1, you got to have a 2, right? All this. If you have a poem at the beginning, you got to have a poem at the end.
You're one of my students at the School of Preaching. The one class they wouldn't let me teach, the one stinking class, and they seriously wouldn't let me teach it, was homiletics, how you preach. And the thing, I would ask questions like, well, why don't we use Jesus and the apostles to talk about how you preach? Well, no, we couldn't do that because they didn't preach like we preach.
Yeah. Jesus God's word dwelt in him.
It just
he had a passion
out
to speak about it, and it came out in everyday talk.
Gus Nichols and others from back in my early days said to preachers, fill yourself up and preach from the overflow. Yeah. And that was the best advice I ever had.
Well, and if we're going to get Christians to live a Christian life,
that's what we're asking them to do.
They need to fill themselves so much with Jesus that it overflows. Even our singing, Colossians talks about our singing needs to, because Christ is dwelling in our hearts.
And we got to let that out.
And it pours out. If you're joyful, sing.
Hence, Jesus calls disciples. And a disciple is a follower of Jesus, and a disciple becomes conformed to the image of Christ. And so we want a lot of people running around loose, as Romans 8:29 says, who are modeled after the first, Jesus, and many brethren who decide to live that way.
The book of Ephesians. It's your
the church book.
It's your go-to, slam dunk, Ephesians 4. But before Ephesians 4 is Ephesians 1 through 3.
And it's commonly conceded by those who figure out such things as that of the epistles, it is the ecclesiastical, i.e. the church epistle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, go read it and you'll figure out why. But the first 3 chapters has nothing to do with what we ought to do.
No.
It's all about what God has done for us in Christ.
So what we do is a response to something, to God. It's not just something we read the rules and do it. It's a response, a very personal response to who God is and what he has done in Jesus.
And all the things, the response are everyday stuff. Hey, be tolerant towards one another. Be unified. Love your wives. Love your husbands. Be good parents.
Be patient.
Raise them in the Lord. I mean,
yes.
If you were a liar, no longer lie.
Stop it.
Right? If you were a thief, don't
steal anymore.
But go do good, right? Because why? Of all what Jesus and God has done to you.
And does that attract people when they see people living like that? Of course it does. Yeah. Our world's full of a bunch of junk and mess and disingenuous and liars. When they see the real deal, humbly going about just being their Jesus self, I guarantee you, if somebody's looking, they're going to take notice of that.
So if churches are going to grow
the
way God wants them to grow, not by hook and crook and not by the Oprah Winfrey's, you'll find $500 under a table, if you sit in a special chair. None of that stuff, right? Not the programs we offer. We got nursery. Those are things I think the church in today's society, it's wise to offer nurseries and all that stuff. But if you're only here because we have a nursery, or you choose not to go somewhere because they don't have a nursery, what are you there for?
It's a very good point. There are a lot of things that we can do that are fine and good, but programs are to service needs that actually really exist. To manage them more efficiently to the extent that they need that. If they are there as this is going to get it done because we got a program, not only is it not going to get it done, it's going to make it worse than it was before.
Yeah. I think Paul, when he ends Ephesians 6, it's kind of enlightening to our discussion when he says, verse 10 of Ephesians 6, finally be strong in the Lord and the strength of all his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. I find it interesting that Paul has been trying to get us in our everyday life to have Jesus influencing every avenue. And if we have Jesus influencing every avenue, then where can Satan get in?
Where's Satan getting in? What's he going to do?
He can't get in.
No, he can't.
The reason he can get in to the church and into Christians in today's world is because we've compartmentalized Jesus. We've got our everyday life, and then we have our Jesus life, and we keep them separate.
He can tear that up. He can discredit it. He can turn people away from it.
That's
the real deal, consistently, everyday life, out of a love for Jesus, is something he can't touch. In fact, he'll flee from that.
Well, I remember having a discussion with my wife one time, and she was kind of frustrated. We have 4 kids, and she knows, she's heard her whole life that she needs to be, Christians convert people, preach the gospel, door knock, all those kinds of things. And she goes, I've barely got time just to raise my kids. And I said, you know what? Your Christianity looks like? It's raising kids in the Lord.
Yes, and the Bible would certainly support that. Now, it's an as you are going in your life, what you're doing, what's up with you, you just go about naturally being yourself. Yeah, she'll touch people. She'll come in contact with people in her sphere you and I can't touch.
I'll tell you right now, my wife, there are people when they look at her and what she's done, she's never meaning to influence. That's the thing about influence. You're never really.
You don't mean
if you're trying to influence, you're overworking.
That's what the Pharisees did.
Yeah. If you're trying to gain influence and affluence and a name for yourself, I'm sure you can gain it, but not the.
No, Jesus is to let your light shine in such a way people will see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven.
That's who gets the glory. God gets the glory. So, in your life, you may be thinking, well, I don't really feel like I have a whole lot to offer the church or God. That's the wrong way to look at it. Jesus, if he's influencing every day of your life, you have as much time as me.
The venue is your life.
Yeah. If you're at work, well, I got to work all day. Man, that's a great place
to be. Be a Christian all day.
That's a great place to bring Jesus. But I got family. That's a great place to bring Jesus.
That's a great place.
But I've got all these obligations. It's a great place to bring Jesus.
Exactly.
And actually a lot of those things that we think keep us from following God are areas where God has placed us so that God can go where he normally wouldn't be.
If we're not there with him, he's not going to be there.
And that's the real deal. That's what Christianity is.
Yes.
And so I want to end with a verse, Ecclesiastes Chapter 12, and I like what I heard a long time ago about how you may have been the one to bring it up. I don't remember.
Who knows?
And it's for the whole duty of man is to what? Keep his commandments, fear God and keep his commandments. But I heard a rendering one time. I don't remember. You can.
Was it that makes a man whole?
Yeah.
Ah.
That which makes a man whole is to fear God and keep his commandments. And that goes back to our initial statement, this Jesus-shaped whole we have.
We got integrity. The pieces fit together.
Yeah. Christianity, doing the commandments of God is not a checklist thing. It's what brings us purpose. Gives us our life-sustaining everything. So, well, we hope you enjoyed that. This is the Seedpod podcast. We talked about the real deal. We're going to try to keep these anywhere from 15 to maybe 30 minutes, depending on the topic. But if you have topics, if you have questions, or if you listen to this and say, I want more, you want a part 2, and you have specifics, let us know.
Let us know, please.
We'd love to answer it.
Okay.
Well, we love you, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.